Donald Trump has been having a meltdown at 12:30 a.m. He's pretending that the deal with Iran, the Memorandum of Understanding, is in full force and effect and that everybody's really happy and that America's going to get really rich off this MOU. I'll show you what Trump was posting while you have Iran responding to U.S. airstrikes off the coast of Iran in the Hormuz Strait. Iran has been striking Bahrain and Kuwait, targeting U.S. military bases there. But
I don't mean to scare you. No, wait, maybe I do mean to scare you. If Trump returns to the White House, you can kiss these freedoms goodbye that we all take for granted. And elections, forget about it. That's over. That's done. If he gets in, I can tell you right now, he will never leave. He will never leave. You know that. He will never leave. What does that mean? Is that the country we want to live in? Do we want him running this country and saying, I'm not leaving, I'm dictator for life?
thank you so much to everyone who has joined our membership. We are now 60 plus members strong. This is just $9 a month, and our goal is to reach 1,000 members so we can continue running America Facticity as an independent journalism platform without corporate funding, outside pressure, or influence. Your support helps us keep this work real, clean, and focused on the truth. If you haven't already, please like the video, share it, subscribe, and leave a comment so this video can reach more people who need to see this reality. Thank you again for standing with independent journalism.
Robert De Niro destroyed Donald Trump on live television, and he has been doing it fearlessly with a fury that comes from genuine moral conviction for nearly a decade. Today is Monday, June 29th, 2026, and the news that broke this weekend proves De Niro right in the most alarming way possible. The Iran peace deal Donald Trump signed at Versailles and declared a historic triumph has collapsed into open warfare again. On Friday, U.S. forces struck Iran, actual airstrikes hitting missile sites, drone storage, and radar facilities, after Iran fired drones at a cargo ship in the Strait of Hormuz. The ceasefire Trump spent weeks bragging about, the deal he called complete, the strait he declared open, all of it shattered within days. The bombs are falling again, and Robert De Niro, who has been screaming for years that this man is dangerous, unstable, and unfit, watches another of his warnings come true. De Niro is not a politician. He is not a pundit. He is one of the greatest actors in the history of American film, a two-time Academy Award winner, the star of Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, The Godfather Part 2, Goodfellas. And he has spent the Trump era using every platform he has, award shows, live television, public rallies, the Tony Awards, the Cannes Film Festival, to say, in the bluntest possible language, what he believes about Donald Trump. He has called him a wannabe tyrant. He has called him a monster. He has stood on live television and said, America is facing monstrous leaders who must be stopped. He does not soften it. He does not hide behind diplomatic language. Robert De Niro looks into the camera and says exactly what he thinks. And what he thinks is that Donald Trump is a danger to the country he loves. And this weekend, as the bombs started falling on Iran again, his warnings have never sounded sharper. Because here is the thing about Robert De Niro that drives Donald Trump up the wall. De Niro cannot be dismissed. Trump's standard move with critics is to call them failures, has-beens, low-rated nobodies who are just jealous of his success. He tried it with De Niro. He once called him a very low IQ individual who had been punched in the face by too many real boxers. But it doesn't stick because everyone knows exactly who Robert De Niro is. He is not a struggling actor looking for attention. He is, by near universal agreement, one of the 2 or 3 greatest film actors who has ever lived. An artist whose work will be studied for as long as movies exist. When a man of that stature, with that much to lose and nothing to gain, spends a decade telling you a president is dangerous.
Donald Trump is posting not anything about that. Here's what he posted at 12:30 a.m. in the morning. Mac to the future. Trump touts Iran deal energy boom that could boost the trucking biz. So Donald Trump is telling the farmers, Iran's going to buy your corn and soybeans and all of your other produce and you're going to get rich. You may be suffering, but Iran's going to buy your produce under the MOU where it doesn't say that anywhere. And to the truckers, you know how you're suffering as well, even though Donald Trump pretended that they're just booming right now? What we just did with Iran, the memorandum of understanding, Iran's going to make you rich truckers. It's going to make you rich farmers. When Donald Trump has not even been complying with the MOU that says nothing about Iran buying produce from the U.S. or helping truckers or any of that, Donald Trump, like he has done his whole life, is a deal breaker, not a deal maker. He is all about bad faith. And so he enters into this MOU with Iran. And then what does Trump and Rubio do right away? He says to all of the ships that are in the Strait of Hormuz, don't follow the Iranian route. Use the American route and ignore Iran. Let's go over here. And then what do they do as well? They basically work with Israel to do a deal with Lebanon that's directly contradictory of the Memorandum of Understanding and encourage and allow Netanyahu to continue bombing in southern Lebanon. And then when Iran seeks to enforce its control over the Strait of Hormuz, which is in Article 5 of the MOU, the United States strikes Iran in Sarik and Keshem, various telecommunications and infrastructure facilities. And
he must be stopped, and he must be stopped now. Amen. It's time to say no to kings. It's time to say no to Donald Trump. We've had enough. No King Trump. No unnecessary wars that rob our resources, sacrifice our brave servicemen and women, and slaughter innocents. No corrupt leader enriching himself and the Epstein-class buddies. No taking away health care from our most vulnerable neighbors. No unaffordable groceries. No unaffordable energy. No unaffordable housing. And no inflation at its highest.
Donald Trump is panicking this morning as Iran has been able to successfully strike down its fifth U.S. aircraft this week alone. Let me repeat that. In this week, Iran has been able to strike down 5 U.S. aircrafts since the United States broke the ceasefire that never really existed in the first place and hit the Strait of Hormuz. Also, we're learning this morning that the Iran Revolutionary Guard has been attacking armed groups in northern Iraq, which it says is working with the United States to go after Iran. State media in Iran says the IRGC has launched attacks on bases used by armed separatist groups in northern Iraq, which it says is being used in conjunction with the United States. The latest aircraft that Iran was able to strike down is the MQ-1 drone.
You cannot wave it away as sour grapes. That is what makes De Niro so threatening to Trump, and it is why Trump's attacks on him always sound so hollow. You cannot diminish Robert De Niro, so when he says F Trump, it lands, and it keeps landing weekend after weekend as the warnings keep coming true. We're going to walk through every piece of it. Pull up a chair. There's a lot here, and it all connects, and it's moving fast. If you appreciate this kind of breakdown, the membership is $9 a month, less than a coffee. No corporate parent, no FCC license to renew, no merger to negotiate with this White House. Just us and you. Jump in if you can. Share the video if you can't. Let me start with the breaking news, because it is the most damning confirmation yet of everything De Niro has been warning about. For weeks, Donald Trump told America he had achieved peace. He signed a memorandum of understanding with Iran at the Palace of Versailles. He posted on Truth Social, "The deal with the Islamic Republic of Iran is now complete. Congratulations to all. I hereby fully authorize the toll-free opening of the Strait of Hormuz. Ships of the world, start your engines. Let the oil flow." He declared the war over. He declared the strait open. He claimed Iran had agreed to nuclear inspections into the future, infinity. It was, he insisted, a historic triumph. And then reality arrived. On Thursday, Iran's Revolutionary Guard struck a Singapore-flagged cargo ship in the Strait of Hormuz with a drone. The United Nations International Maritime Organization immediately paused its effort to evacuate hundreds of ships and thousands of mariners still stranded in the Persian Gulf, because despite Trump's open-for-business declaration, the strait was never actually open. On Friday, Trump accused Iran of a foolish violation of the ceasefire. A reporter asked if the U.S. would respond. Trump said, "You'll find out," and then he ordered the strikes. U.S. Central Command confirmed that 6 land-based American aircraft hit 4 targets: missile and drone storage facilities, coastal radar sites, locations on Iran's Keshem Island. CENTCOM called it a powerful response to Iran's dangerous behavior. The bombs were falling on Iran again. Sit with the timeline for a moment because it is devastating. Trump signed the deal on June 17th. He declared the strait open and the deal complete on Truth Social over the following weekend. He told the country the war was over. And by Friday, June 26th, 9 days later, American aircraft were bombing Iran again. 9 days. That is the lifespan of Donald Trump's historic peace. Not 9 years, not 9 months. 9 days from let the oil flow to powerful response.
Then Iran responds, then the U.S. responds, and there's been a full-fledged war taking place over this weekend. But Donald Trump says to all the truckers out there, you're going to be rich from Iran. Oh, and then Donald Trump posts the following as well. Based on the very quick and boring briefing concerning the Maggot Hagerman book about me, it is mostly made up fake news, largely fiction, as have been most of the things she has written about me for many years. She is a third-rate writer. Russia, Russia, Russia. Remember, I won the election big. And they don't have audio tapes that imply they have. Just another Margot con job, and Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. DJT. Again, that's what he's posting at 12:30 a.m. I think he's talking about Maggie Haberman's book, Regime Change, about him. He's also posting weird AI images of former President Biden, Kamala Harris, and Hillary Clinton wearing red AI hats that say, I lost to Trump. And then slightly earlier than that, Donald Trump posted a photo of himself when he was 17, maybe 16 years old, next to former President Obama. And then Donald Trump claims he's 20 years old, where he's wearing this outfit from the military boarding school that he went to. Of course, he was never actually in the military. It's a retired drone because the new one is the MQ-9 Reaper drone. 4 MQ-9 Reapers were knocked out of the sky this week by Iran. 1 MQ-1, and the MQ-1, even though it's retired, is still being used to a limited degree, and it has a bunch of other features that were kind of added on to it. So while that's going on, that's the truth. We have to talk about what's really happening out there, which is being covered up by the United States, CENTCOM, and our corporate news. This is what Donald Trump was posting this morning, that he wants a drone port as our drones, one by one, are being knocked out of the sky by Iran. This morning, Donald Trump posted, the drone port at the White House ballroom will be perhaps the most sophisticated anywhere in the world. It will safeguard our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., long into the future. Judge Richard Leon should stop playing games with America's security.
And the trigger was exactly the thing every critic warned about. Iran never actually relinquished control of the Strait of Hormuz, so the moment a ship tried to pass without Tehran's blessing, the shooting started again. The deal did not end the war. It paused it badly, while letting Iran keep the one piece of leverage that guaranteed the war would resume. And the chaos rippled across the entire region this weekend. A Singapore-flagged cargo ship hit. A container ship struck by a projectile off the coast of Oman. Bahrain reporting an Iranian drone hitting a residential building. Dubai residents receiving an incoming missile alert on their phones, later called a false alarm, but the first such alert since the ceasefire, capturing the sheer fear rippling through the Gulf. Iran forcing 3 foreign oil tankers to turn around for not coordinating with Tehran. The International Maritime Organization pausing its evacuation of stranded ships. This is not peace. This is a region on the knife's edge, exactly as Robert De Niro and every serious critic warned it would be. Trump declared victory and went to a farmer's dinner in the Rose Garden. The Gulf got missile alerts. So here is where we actually stand on this Monday morning. The complete deal is not complete. The open strait is not open. Iran's new Persian Gulf Strait Authority is turning away tankers that don't request Tehran's permission, forcing foreign oil ships to reverse course, and warning that any vessel using a route outside Iran's framework will not be covered by safe passage guarantees. Iran's Parliament National Security Chief, Ebrahim Azizi, openly mocked Trump. The Strait of Hormuz is governed by Iran, so respect the rules. Do not mistake control for escalation. This is not a violation of the ceasefire. It is ceasefire management. Ceasefire management. That is, Iran telling the President of the United States to his face that they control the strait now, and he can like it or not. And inflation inside Iran hit 88.6%, the highest of the entire war, while Iran's foreign ministry openly mocked Trump's claim that food is desperately needed in Iran by citing America's own food poverty statistics. Think about that humiliation. The President of the United States claims he is generously feeding the Iranian people, and Iran's government fires back by pointing out how many Americans go hungry. That is the level of respect Donald Trump now commands on the world stage. This is the triumph. This is the peace. Robert De Niro told us who this man was. The bombs falling on Iran this weekend are the proof. Subscribe and share the video if you appreciate this kind of breakdown. Now let me give you the full Robert De Niro record on Donald Trump, because it is one of the most sustained, fearless campaigns any major American artist has ever waged against a sitting president. And his credibility on the subject of Donald Trump is unique, because Robert De Niro is not just any celebrity. He is one of the most quintessentially New York figures alive, and he watched Trump rise in that city across half a century. De Niro was born in 1943 in Greenwich Village, the son of two artists. He came up through the New York film world, working with Martin Scorsese on a run of films.
She just said everything is Todd Blanche's fault, and she refused to answer any questions about her conversations with Donald Trump or what Trump told her about covering up this child sex trafficking ring. She refused to answer those questions. So Katie Fang's like, look, enough is enough with all of this. We saw Howard Lutnick's scam where he didn't testify under oath and didn't testify on video, but did an informal meeting. You had Pam Bondi showed up on Friday, informal meeting. We all know there are millions and millions of Epstein documents, the worst of the worst documents, even worse than what's been released already, being concealed by these predators, the Epstein class and the Trump regime. Katie Fang files the lawsuit. Then on Thursday, she seeks an emergency injunction. On Friday, we get an order from the federal judge, and the federal judge rules as follows. Defendant's opposition brief, meaning Trump, has to respond to us by June 5th, 2026. And the plaintiff reply brief will be due June 8th, 2026. A hearing will now be taking place June 16th, 2026 at 11 a.m. in courtroom 24A in person before Judge Emmett G. Sullivan. Here's the application that Katie Fang followed. Plaintiff's application for a preliminary injunction. Plaintiff Katie Fang moves the court for a preliminary injunction requiring defendant Todd Blanche, the acting attorney general of the United States, to cure several instances of non-compliance with the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Specifically, she requested that the names that were redacted of the perps, the perpetrators, the pedos, the people who are being covered up, those names need to be released immediately, and the files that are being withheld need to be produced immediately. Here's what Katie Fang wrote. The Epstein Files Transparency Act requires the Attorney General to produce, with a few exceptions, all files in the Department of Justice's possession related to Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, their networks, and their crimes. Defendant Todd Blanche, the acting attorney general, has flouted Congress's directives and the act's unambiguous commands. Among other deficiencies, Blanche has redacted the names of Epstein's friends, associates, and potential co-conspirators, withheld documents implicating his own boss, Donald Trump, in alleged crimes, and invoked exceptions to the disclosure that Congress never authorized. Plaintiff Katie Fang is an independent journalist, by the way, with the Midas Touch Network, who has covered Epstein, his network, and his victims for many years. In the past year alone, Fang has published 72 videos about Epstein, Maxwell, and the Epstein files. Fang relies on materials disclosed under the Act to report on many of her stories, so Blanche's flagrant violations of the Act made it much harder for Fang to do her job. He had behavioral issues, and his dad, Fred, was worried about a lot of other things he was doing and getting into. And so, but he claims he was 20 years old. This is funny, you're not 20 years old, you were 17. And what's your infatuation with Obama? Back in the real world, where the American people are psychologically tortured by this behavior and are suffering economically as Trump tariffed the entire world, as inflation is surging, as this war is compounding the problems that people face here, as people in the United States can't afford rent, they can't afford homes or groceries or gas or anything, and people are dipping into their savings and are about to go bankrupt. In the real world, Iran has issued a warning. I think it's very close to closing down the Strait of Hormuz again. Iran's foreign ministry, in an official statement, said the following about everything, that the U.S. violated the peace agreement and it does not place the slightest value and credibility on its commitments. And it's true, under Trump, and the United States does not value a single commitment. Iran's foreign ministry slammed the U.S. strikes on its southern coast as flagrant violations of their interim deal. Tehran claims the targeted surveillance facilities were protected under the truce, fueling major diplomatic crisis. I think that's putting it lightly, but just think about it. Last June, when the Trump regime and Netanyahu attacked the Iran facilities, they were negotiating in good faith. Boom, that's when Trump sucker punches you. Trump is a sucker puncher.
Mean Streets, Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, Goodfellas, Casino, considered among the greatest ever made. He won his first Oscar for The Godfather Part 2 and his second for Raging Bull. He built Tribeca, the Lower Manhattan neighborhood, into a cultural institution, co-founding the Tribeca Film Festival in the wake of the September 11th attacks specifically to help his wounded city heal. This is a man whose entire identity is bound up with New York City. And Donald Trump is, for De Niro, a specifically New York kind of villain, the tabloid huckster. The bankruptcy artist who stiffed contractors, the self-promoter who was a punchline to New Yorkers long before the rest of the country took him seriously. When De Niro says, "We New Yorkers know Trump well," he means it literally. He watched the act develop up close for 50 years and never once mistook it for the real thing. It started before Trump was even elected. In 2016, De Niro recorded a blistering video in which he said Trump was totally nuts, a punk, a dog, a pig, a con, a bullshit artist, a mutt, an idiot, and a national disaster, and famously added, "I'd like to punch him in the face." It was raw, it was furious, and it set the tone for everything that followed. De Niro does not do measured political commentary. He does moral outrage, delivered with the full force of a man who has spent his life playing characters who understand violence, corruption, and power. The Travis Bickles and Jake LaMotta's and Jimmy Conways, men who saw the rot in the world clearly. There is something fitting about the actor who gave us those characters being the one who refuses to look away from what he sees in Donald Trump. And the moment that earned him his place in history came at the 2018 Tony Awards, broadcast live on national television. Robert De Niro walked to the podium, raised two fists, and said twice, for emphasis, "F Trump." The broadcast had to bleep it. The audience in Radio City Music Hall rose to its feet in a standing ovation. He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. 2 words on live television at one of the most prestigious events in American entertainment said what millions of people felt. It became one of the defining political moments in awards show history. That is Robert De Niro destroying Trump on live TV in the most literal possible sense. 2 words, fully censored, and a standing ovation that said the whole country was listening. What made that Tony Awards moment land so hard was the contrast between the setting and the sentiment. This was Broadway's biggest night, black tie, glamour, the most celebrated artists in American theater. And into that polished, genteel environment, Robert De Niro brought the raw, unfiltered fury that millions of Americans were feeling, but that polite society kept telling them to suppress. He didn't make a careful, hedged political statement. He didn't say, "I have concerns about the direction of the country." He said the 2 blunt words, and the entire room, the most accomplished people in American theater, leapt to their feet to cheer him. That standing ovation was the point. It was a room full of artists confirming that the rage was not fringe, was not extreme, was shared.
The IDF is issuing an urgent evacuation warning to residents of Lebanon, saying they're basically going to blow up this area near Beirut. No, not a big shocker. And we're seeing more strikes as well take place right now in Lebanon. So Israel and in Beirut. And so Donald Trump is just being utterly ignored right there. Mayor Mamdani just put out the following statement as well, though. He said, "The New York Knicks are our home and our city is ready to show out. We're hosting a free watch party for 5,000 New Yorkers tonight in Bryant Park. You can register at the link below starting at noon today." So there you have it. He's going to offer another location for these watch parties right here after Madison Square Garden canceled all of the Knicks watch parties because Donald Trump wanted to show up, where Trump is undoubtedly going to get booed. Just bring in some B-roll right here, guys, of what's happening in Albania right now, where the Trump family there is continuing to be protested by the people of Albania as a result of Ivanka and Jared wanting to take over that Albanian island and turn it into a Trumpenstein weirdo island. And They want to put 10,000 rooms for oligarchs to like live on this Albanian island. What they're calling what's happening in Albania right now is a flamingo revolution against Trump's family business dirty dealings in Albania. And as I reported earlier, the European Union now is also saying to Albania, I know you wanted to have this ascension to the European Union, but by waiving your environmental protocols to allow Jared and Ivanka to build this island, that could violate critical issues regarding you joining the EU. So again, everything that Trump's touch goes to absolute crap right now in all ways. And you also think about the World Cup. There's like chaos in the World Cup. And so first and foremost, how the United States is treating Iran's soccer or football team. The worst type of vile piece of trash is Donald Trump. He's never been the art of the deal. He's always just been a con artist who uses the good faith involved in negotiations that if you let your guard down for a moment, bam, he punches you. That's what he did in his life in business. He's never viewed a deal as actually binding people to things, where the adversary at a negotiation may. Trump doesn't. He views it as something that you manipulate and then you relentlessly manipulate to harm people. And you're just seeing it here again. Then in February, when the United States was supposedly making a deal with Iran, boom, that's when the U.S. violates the mediator's proposal by Oman. And here, ever since the United States entered into this MOU and had those technical talks in Switzerland because we were about to hit tank bottom, literally we're about to run out of our petroleum reserves here and internationally. As soon as the U.S. got some of that oil back, even though we're about to be in a dire situation, I'll talk about that in a moment as well. Let's see what the oil prices are tomorrow. Trump's market manipulation again is going to backfire in his face. I've been warning about this over and over and over again. If you look at the facts that are actually happening right here, you have a much more dangerous, much more chaotic, much more serious problems taking place. And Donald Trump has every step of the way tried to manipulate this MOU to violate it every opportunity he has. Again, while Donald Trump is out there having this meltdown and making those posts, Iran is firing on Kuwait and Bahrain in response to the U.S. airstrikes.
De Niro gave permission on live national television to say the thing out loud, and the broadcasters had to scramble to bleep it, which only made it bigger. He never stopped. At the 2024 presidential debate cycle, De Niro appeared outside Trump's criminal trial in Manhattan on behalf of the Biden campaign and warned in stark terms about what a second Trump term would mean. If Trump returns to the White House, you can kiss these freedoms goodbye, he said. We New Yorkers know Trump well. He's a clown, a dangerous wannabe tyrant. A dangerous wannabe tyrant. From a born and raised New Yorker who watched Trump operate in that city for 50 years, the same kind of first-hand hometown knowledge that gives George Clooney's and Howard Stern's criticisms their weight. De Niro knows the type. He grew up around it, and he has never bought the act. That courthouse appearance was significant because it showed De Niro was willing to go beyond awards show one-liners and put himself directly into the political fight, standing outside the courthouse where Trump was on trial, lending his name and his fame to the argument that this man could not be allowed back into power. Trump's allies mocked him. Trump's supporters heckled him. He stood there and said it anyway. Hit subscribe if this kind of breakdown is what you're here for. Share the video. The corporate media won't connect any of these dots. And in 2025, at the Cannes Film Festival, receiving an honorary Palme d'Or, De Niro took his warning global. He did not stick to film. He told the international audience that America's Philistine president has had himself appointed head of one of our premier cultural institutions. A reference to Trump taking over the Kennedy Center. He called Trump a Philistine president, and then he widened it into a warning the whole world could hear. This is not just an American problem, it's a global one. Like a film, we can't just be spectators. We can't just be spectators. De Niro standing on a stage in France, telling the world that what was happening in America was a threat to everyone, and that watching passively was not an option. It was a call to action from a man who has spent a decade refusing to be a spectator himself. The Cannes speech also revealed something about how De Niro understands the threat. He framed it explicitly around culture and authoritarianism, the way strong men always move to capture cultural institutions, to control what art gets made and celebrated, to install themselves as arbiters of taste. Trump taking over the Kennedy Center, naming himself chairman, purging its board, that was the specific act that set De Niro off because he recognized it for what it is, a classic authoritarian move. Control the culture, and you control the story a country tells about itself. De Niro, a man who has spent his life inside America's cultural institutions, saw the danger that a lot of people missed, and he used the most prestigious stage in world cinema to sound the alarm in front of an international audience, knowing it would make headlines everywhere. He turned his honorary award into a warning. That is who he is. This is the through line of everything De Niro has said.
We're going to wait for the hearing that we've got. And remember, make sure you all subscribe to Katie Fang's YouTube channel. But that hearing will now be taking place June 16, 2026. What we expect the Department of Justice to argue is what they argued when Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie sought a special master. We believe the Department of Justice is going to say the Epstein Transparency Act provides no cause of action or no remedy, and nobody can do anything. It's what they've argued before. So we'll see if they argue it here, now that this is the first private lawsuit of its kind that's being brought. But I think that will be very revealing and show you the cover-up that's taking place. But an instant order, an instant response by the federal judge. The Trump regime's going to have to respond. Now, I also want to share this with you because this video is really not out there at all. This was James Comer, the MAGA Republican chair of the House Oversight Committee. And here's what he said on Friday when Pam Bondi was involved in the massive cover-up. Here's how he tried to spin it. Let's play this clip.
Hello, I want to thank everyone for being here today. This will be our 13th interview thus far in the Epstein investigation. We'll be having former Attorney General Pam Bondi. This is the second time she's come voluntarily. She came a few months ago for a briefing. Unfortunately, the Democrats got up and walked out of that briefing. Many of the Republicans asked her questions for a couple of hours during that briefing, and I'm appreciative that she's coming back today voluntarily.
Earlier in the day, Donald Trump said, there may come a point when we are no longer able to be reasonable, and we will be forced to militarily complete the job that we very successfully started. And if that happens, the Islamic Republic of Iran will no longer exist. DJT. As I've said, what Trump wants to do with this MOU is achieve that which he couldn't in the war. And now he feels, okay, I just got out of this tank bottom situation. I bought myself a little time. So now I'm going to be threatening and be the predator to Iran again. And Iran's just going to say, stop it. And they're going to shut down the Strait of Hormuz again. I think we're going to hit a situation where we're going to have global economic meltdown as a result of Trump's behavior. He's literally a psychotic human being. And you can see what he's posting, all throughout the day. I mean, he's posting he's going to destroy the Iranian civilization again. Remember when he was in Versailles, he's like, we're about to go bankrupt. We're about to have a global depression. I had to enter into the deal. And now he's like, and I'm going to blow up your entire civilization. He's literally a psychopath. He's a clinical psychopath. You can't have rational conversations with him and the disgusting people he surrounds himself with in his regime. Let me tell you what's also happening as Donald Trump is out there posting at 12:30 a.m. as well. It seems that there is a military operation that the United States is supporting in Iraq. It seems like Ali al-Zaidi, the kind of compromised prime minister, literally through a compromised prime minister in Iraq right now, is working with the United States and Netanyahu to round up in Iraq politicians who support Iranian-backed militias there. It seems like that's what's going on at night. So Foreign Minister Araghchi of Iran was set to head over to Iraq with a delegation on Monday, according to the Foreign Ministry of Iran. During the visit, the top Iranian diplomat will hold talks with senior Iraqi officials on bilateral relations, as well as regional and international developments. Right before Araghchi was going to be there,
that Trump represents a kind of monstrousness that decent people have an obligation to oppose out loud. He has talked again and again about monstrous leaders, about the danger of normalizing a man who, in De Niro's view, embodies cruelty, vanity, and the will to power stripped of any conscience. He has compared the moment to the rise of authoritarian regimes in history. He has said he never imagined in his lifetime that he would have to fight this fight in his own country. And what makes his voice land is that there is nothing calculated about it. De Niro is not protecting a brand or chasing a demographic. He is a man in his 80s who came up from the streets of New York to become one of the greatest artists his country ever produced, and who is genuinely, viscerally afraid of what Donald Trump is doing to that country. The fury is real. The fear is real. And this weekend, as American bombs fell on Iran for the second time, the fear looks more justified than ever. If you're getting value from this breakdown, the membership is $9 a month, less than a cup of coffee, and it fuels independent journalism, while the corporate networks settle lawsuits and cancel the hosts who tell the truth. Jump in if you can. Share the video if you can't. Now let me give you the rest of the news, because the renewed strikes on Iran are just the latest chapter in a collapse that has been accelerating all month. The deal Trump signed is, by every credible account, a disaster dressed as a victory. The newly public details are staggering. The famous reopening of the Strait of Hormuz actually requires ships to request Iran's permission through the new Persian Gulf Strait Authority. And this weekend, Iran proved the point by forcing 3 foreign oil tankers to turn around for failing to coordinate with Tehran, calling their attempt to cross illegal, unacceptable, and highly dangerous. There were even reports the U.S. had floated redirecting Iran's frozen assets toward reconstruction, and on Thursday, Trump confirmed that unfrozen Iranian assets would be used to buy American crops for the Iranian people, though Trump now angrily denies the widely reported $300 billion reconstruction figure, calling it fake news. It emerged that Iran had offered to downblend its uranium 2 days before the war even started, meaning Trump fought a $100 billion war to reach a deal he could have had for free. And CNN determined that between March 23rd and June 9th, Trump claimed at least 38 times that a deal was imminent. This past week alone, Trump claimed Iran agreed to nuclear inspections into the future, infinity, and Iran flatly denied making any new commitments. He got into a shouting match with Republican Senator Bill Cassidy in a closed-door meeting, and his administration asked Congress for about $87.6 billion to pay for the war, bundled remarkably with funding for an Ebola outbreak and support for American farmers. Trump declared that anyone who criticizes the deal, even friends of mine, needs to be educated. Republican Senator Bill Cassidy called the deal the worst foreign policy blunder in decades, writing that Reagan is rolling over in his grave.
Remember, the United States strikes Iran, and now we're seeing the Iraqi security forces continuing to arrest Iraqi politicians who are sympathetic to Iran, and they're being rounded up right now. And you had earlier this month the reports about how Tom Barrack, who's Trump's ambassador to everything in the Middle East, was heading to Iraq to press Baghdad to eliminate the Iran-backed militias right here. And the point I want to make is, regardless of where your views on this issue, it's obvious that this MOU is BS. Because the U.S. is going to, if you don't want to enter into an MOU with Iran, don't enter into it. If you don't want to recognize Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz or administration with Oman, don't put that in the clause. If you don't want to have Israel leave southern Lebanon, which, by the way, to be clear, in my view, Israel should not be in southern Lebanon. And I think what's going on in Beirut by Israel is absolutely horrific, by Netanyahu is absolutely, horrific. But my point is that if you don't want a ceasefire, then don't make that paragraph 1 of the MOU. The point I'm simply making is the Trump regime signed a document, a binding agreement that we were hoping could create some semblance of global stability and peace, caused after the chaos that Donald Trump has created and the pain and suffering that the American people are feeling. And we shouldn't have gone into this unlawful and catastrophic war in the first place with Netanyahu. It is horrific. It is unforgivable. Nonetheless, we have to deal with the current reality. And so I think we all are hoping, could we just stop this war, stop the bullshit, help Americans get homes, help Americans eat, And just to remind you, here is where Donald Trump said that he kept Iran's military in power because they're so moderate and he likes talking to them, just so you can see for yourself. Let's play this clip.
Their Navy is totally gone, 100%. Their Air Force is totally gone, 100%. Their military, we've sort of left it alone because we think that their military is somewhat moderate. They have other people that aren't moderate. We've taken them out. We've taken different forms of leadership out. We've actually left their military alone. People would be surprised to hear that. because mistakes have been made in wars where you wipe out everybody and then you have a country that's, for 40 years can never rebuild.
So one of the things that Donald Trump was leaking to Barack Ravid of Axios earlier in the day, and that the Trump regime was leaking, is that we can't speak with the Iranians because they're in caves and they're cavemen. And that's why these negotiations are taking so long, because they're in caves. Well, here's a group of the Iranian leadership right here. We know who their leaders are, and they're posted on their state media. Oath of the new members of parliament, presiding board with the presence of 201 representatives virtually and in person right here, chaired by MB Ghalibaf, who's the leader of Iran's parliament. You see him right there in the middle. And here's what
Republican Senator Tom Tillis said $100 billion has been spent since the first kinetic strike. We've lost 2 F-18s. And the nuclear inspection question, the entire stated reason for the war, remains a public argument between Trump and Iran, with each side saying the opposite. Trump claims infinity. Iran says nothing changed. The IAEA's Director General, Rafael Grossi, says he expects Iran to allow inspectors in to review the sites, but Iran says that access continues only under current procedures, meaning nothing new was agreed. And as CNN pointed out, the IAEA already had limited access before the war, and fuller inspections were the centerpiece of the Obama-era deal Trump tore up in his first term. So Trump destroyed an inspection regime in 2018, fought a $100 billion war, and is now claiming a historic victory for getting back something less than he started with while Iran denies he got even that. The whole deal is a public dispute in which the two sides cannot even agree on what was agreed. That is not diplomacy. That is the chaos De Niro keeps naming. On Friday, even as he ordered new strikes on Iran, Trump hosted a Rose Garden dinner with American farmers and gave a speech to the Faith and Freedom Coalition, where he admitted Iran still has some capability, not much, and an admission that undercut his own claims that the war had destroyed Iran's military. And the Lebanon front is unraveling too. On Friday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio presided over a signing ceremony for a U.S.-brokered Israel-Lebanon framework. But both Iran and Hezbollah immediately said it contradicts the very memorandum Trump signed weeks ago, and Israel's Defense Minister Katz announced the IDF would prepare for an extended stay in a southern Lebanon security zone, directly contradicting the deal's promise to end all operations in Lebanon. More than 3,800 people have been killed in Lebanon. Even Pope Leo XIV weighed in this week, telling the world's cardinals that war is never blessed by God and that humanity was given intelligence and free will to resolve conflicts as human beings and not as beasts. The man Trump promised would bring peace is, this weekend, dropping bombs again. And consider the sheer incoherence of it all, because it captures the monstrous chaos De Niro keeps describing. On a single Friday, Donald Trump declared the Strait of Hormuz open while Iran was forcing tankers to turn around, signed a Lebanon peace framework that the parties on the ground immediately said was worthless, ordered airstrikes on Iran, hosted a celebratory farmers' dinner in the Rose Garden, admitted Iran still has military capability after months of claiming it had been destroyed, and confirmed that America would unfreeze Iranian money so Iran could buy American crops. Peace and war declared in the same news cycle by the same man, sometimes in the same hour. There is no strategy here that anyone can identify. There is only a man lurching from declaration to declaration, claiming victory and ordering bombs, hosting dinners, and threatening annihilation, with no apparent plan and no apparent memory of what he said the day before.
Americans who are suffering right now, who can't afford anything, and enough of this, get the hell out of the Middle East. What the hell are we doing there? Stop it. Right? That's what we were hoping, to the point where I was even like, I'm at least glad that JD was in Switzerland. I mean, I'm not a JD Vance fan by any means, at least working on something that could, result in, some potential hope for peace. But then what happened? Swoop, Marco Rubio goes there. I told you what he was going to do. He's an agent of Netanyahu. He's working with the neocons. He's working with the warhawks. I said he was there to poison this. They enter into an MOU, Lebanon, Israel, the United States, which on its face is directly contradictory to the Iran MOU. The Lebanon MOU and the Iran MOU, again, regardless of what you think, my point is simply, objectively, the documents are contradictory, and the Lebanon MOU basically recognizes Israel's right without any specific time frame, to be in southern Lebanon and to continue striking in southern Lebanon, which is at odds with Article 1 of the Iran MOU. That's all. That's the only point I'm making. And while all of this is happening, yes, I understand the markets are being manipulated, but look right here, the oil going out of the Strait of Hormuz and the Hormuz vessel crossings. As Michael McDonough points out, Hormuz vessel crossing update, back down to 24. The pullback to 24 ships reflects renewed escalation. The U.S. conducted these fresh strikes on Iranian targets in the Strait of Hormuz, and now we're seeing a dramatic decrease. And if you look right over here, it's going to decrease to where it was. And then the other thing that they have is just talking about elections are rigged and the California election is rigged. No, it's not. It's not. Just stop it. You got to deal with this idiot MAGA guy, Randy Fine, this MAGA Republican congressman who then parrots what Donald Trump says. They go through the dumpsters to find the fraudulent balance. You just make up things. You just wake up and you lie about every damn thing. Here, let's play this clip.